Suit up, strap in, warm the tires, and leave on yellow. Time for the MitsuTimes podcast, presented by MitsuTimes.org, the home of the fastest Mitsubishi cars. With your host, Josh.
Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Josh from MitsuTimes. Today, my guest is Mr. Kurt Stewart. He is another one of the owner-drivers of one of the craziest cars at the shootout, the all-motor 1G. How you doing today, Kurt?
Oh, not too bad.
Good. Just surviving in the cold, huh?
Yes, sir. It's been a cold one.
So, all-motor is so interesting to me. I feel like the 4G63 seems capable. I know there was a dragster a long time ago that ran a 4G63 all-motor and was pretty successful. So what made you want to get into doing an all-motor build?
Well, a lot of reasons, really. The biggest one for me right now is, I have my other 1G that's a turbo car. It's got like a 64, 66 on it built, and it's run, high nines, and I can't really go any farther with it without putting full cage in it. And, now I got two little kids, and I don't need to be going 160 and something. I mean, and the all-motor car is going to go that eventually, but, I don't need to be doing that in a street car anymore.
Right.
I got kids and a wife to come home to. So I wanted to build this all-motor car because I thought that I could, keep going and really chase making it run good. And, even if the best it's going to do is it's going to run, high mid-nines at 145 or so like my other car does. So I thought, that'll allow me to have, a creative outlet or whatever, really search for performance without getting into something that, we all know where the turbo cars are going to go if you keep working at it. They're going to go really, really fast. So this kind of puts a cap on how fast you're going to go. And in my mind, keeps it a little more safer, So that's been kind of it, and that's just the challenge,
Yeah, I definitely understand that. So tell us about the setup on this all-motor car.
I think it's nothing crazy. It's pretty, standard stuff, but, some people get amazed by it. But it's just, it's an Eagle, 100 millimeter Eagle crank. So it's a 2.35, it's 86.5 bore. Pistons with big old lumps on them. I think it's like 15.5 to 1.
Wow.
And it's got a set of $50 eBay rods. I have no idea what they are. They came in a plain brown box. They didn't even have the finished machine work done. I had to hone the big ends and the little ends to size.
Kidding.
Yeah, they were $50. It's like, all right. I actually kind of bent one of the beams when I made a fixture in my mill to hold them down to mill it, and trying to get it off the fixture. I actually bent one a little bit. Straightened it out with a crescent wrench. It's been fine. So I need to take it apart and check it over and make sure everything's happy, because I'm turning this thing a lot RPM compared to what most people would turn a stroker motor.
For sure. Where did you get the 15-to-1 pistons?
They're actually Honda B20s pistons.
No kidding.
Yeah, they got the right pin diameter and just about the right pin height. I had to mill about 40 thousandths off the top and then move the valve reliefs around quite a bit.
Wow, that's really cool.
It ain't that hard to get big compression with a stroker motor because it's got, such a small bore and so much stroke.
Mm-hmm.
Just a flat top in a stroker motor is going to be, 12 or 13 to 1.
Yeah.
So, and then like the top end of the motor, the head's just a stock 6-bolt head. I haven't touched it. It's got Kigley's good springs in it and a set of GSC S3s. Let's see, the header I made. And I made the flange, and that's kind of a problem with these things is that stuff doesn't really exist.
Right.
And what people are going to use for turbo stuff that you can buy is nowhere near big enough for an all-motor deal.
For sure.
It's got an old school Dijon sheet metal intake. It's the old steel one, actually. And I've done a bunch of dyno testing on intakes on my turbo motor, and everyone gets all wrapped up around it. And realistically, there's not a lot of power difference between the best and the worst when it comes to the sheet metal. All it's really going to do is shape the curve a little different.
Right.
I had this on the shelf. It's got a little bit longer runners, so I thought it was going to help make a little more mid-range. because I didn't think I was going to be turning this motor so high. So I thought I wanted it to work a little better down low. So that's why this is on it versus something else. It's got like a China 74 millimeter throttle body. It's on M5. Let's see. I never back-to-backed M5 versus methanol. But E85 versus methanol on this thing was worth like 25 or 30 horsepower.
No kidding.
So it was a big gain. And then, I drove it on the street. This was when it was still front-wheel drive. When I first got the car going, it was front-wheel drive. I all-wheel drive swapped this thing. And I'll talk about that in a minute, I guess. But anyways, I got it going on the street and just stood on the gas, and it was like unbelievable how much more responsive and how much more powerful it was. I mean, before, like if you rolled into it in third, it kind of, chirped the tires a little bit when the torque came on. But now it just straight up right to the rev limiter with the M5. Big difference. And then the first axle tried to make a hit on the street with a front-wheel drive, broke axles with that M5.
Wow,
So,
that's crazy.
I mean, and it's not because the M5. It's just it's got a lot of gear in it and everything.
Yeah. Likes to rev.
Yeah. So driveline wise, this is again, the whole build's really a lot of custom, but not really kind of. All motor. This thing's only going to trap. At the best with this combo, I think it might go 125 or something before I figure anything else out. So, like, I got a dog box in the car, and I don't have it in here because the ratios are all wrong. Like, the dog box, 9,000 fourth gear, the thing's going to go 160. So you'd end up using it as a 3-speed. And my little brother's got a Fairmont that's all motor, and, we played with that, and that, getting the ratios right was a big change in how his ran. So I didn't want to go down that road of it being stuck at 3-speed. So this actually has a W5M31, which is a non-turbo all-wheel drive trans.
No kidding.
And so the manual transmissions are kind of like the auto, and they have the transfer gear setup that everyone gets the Liberty setup and all that, and changes the ratios. So in a normal turbo 5-speed, that transfer ratio is 1.27. In a non-turbo one, it's 1.68.
Wow.
So, but a non-turbo one also has a much taller ring and pinion, so they got 284s where a turbo's got a 355. So I ended up putting the turbo final drives in a non-turbo trans. So like the overall in a turbo car is like 493. The overall in this thing's like 685 or something. So it brings this thing at 9,000 and fourth would only go like 125 on 26-inch tires.
Really?
And that there is a big key to making it work.
Just kind of different puzzle pieces getting put together.
Yeah, realistically, yeah. It's all Mitsu stuff, and you just kind of gotta play with stuff. And I knew this a long time ago because I actually ran the tall 286 gears in my turbo car to see how it would work being a 3-speed, because I actually had a master plan on putting a get drag out of a 3000 GT in the car, and it would basically be the same way. It'd be really tall. You don't use it as a 3-speed. So I tried it just to see how it was going to act. And it went okay. It's just it was really, really, really hard in the clutch. The turbo car wasn't as sensitive to the ratios as the all motor is.
Yeah. Start breaking stuff, you got to back it down a little bit.
Yep. So then this car, I all-wheel drive swapped it in about probably 2 weeks before the shootout. Wow. I got it done. So what I did on this car, actually, I had this plan and I had worked on some of it, but I physically got started on it, a few weeks before the shootout. And it's actually a rear end out of a Mighty Max that I cut the existing axle tubes off, put my own axle tubes on, made my own housing ends. The Mighty Max, that's got that weird 6 lug.
Yeah.
And they're actually like 3 inches narrower than a DSM rear end.
Huh.
So when I first got started, I had thought about just using it narrow and finding some different wheels and whatever, and I was like, I can't do that. It's too butchered. So I, basically built a rear end like you would for, a normal rear-wheel drive race car. My brother was doing one at the same time, a 9-inch for his Fairmont, so was able to share some ideas and stuff. This is actually using I think SN95 Mustang axles. He had some laying around. So I ended up making housing ends to take 9-inch Ford style bearings.
Oh, nice.
My own, rear brake kit uses some nice AFCO calipers. It actually uses factory rotors. I need to get something lighter on there eventually, but can only fight so many battles at one time, trying to get this done.
You already got piled up to the ceiling.
Yeah. So suspension wise is actually the all-wheel drive stuff bolts in. There is no modification to the chassis at all except for getting rid of the trunk floor. You got to cut that out and make it flat. Other than that, it all bolts in. Not even a hole drilled.
Wow. It's even easier than the 2G.
Yes, a big reason why I went down this path is because of the rules for World Cup finals is that it all has to be bolt-on. So when I first got this car, that's what I wanted to do with it, but the rules have changed, so I don't know that it's ever going to happen. But that was a big part of the reason why I did it the way I did, was because it's all bolt-on. And a lot of race classes are like that. As soon as you start modifying the chassis for the rear suspension, they get all, weirded out about it. But when it bolts on, it's this factory suspension, and it's a torque arm design like a 4th-gen F-body would have. And I chose all this because of weight. The rear suspension that's in the car, it's about, the whole rear end of it, it's about 100 pounds lighter than a 4-bolt.
No kidding.
And probably, 135 lighter than if you did a 3000 GT center section.
Wow.
So yeah, that's why I went this way. It's light. It's very, very light. I don't know that I would try to do exactly how I did it in something like Booston's car. I think it's probably a little light duty for that.
Yeah.
But I think for anything I'm going to do, I think it's going to be plenty. And if it's not, it bolts in, I'll make something else,
Right, for sure. It's not the end of the world if it breaks.
Exactly. And then, the Mighty Max rear end's big. It's like the 3000 GT is a 7.5-inch ring gear. This is an 8-inch ring gear.
Wow. I never
realized that. Yeah, it's got 28 spline axles. I want to get a spool and get it up to some ideally, I think I want to get a spool and get 35 spline gun drilled because those will actually save some more weight over what I have in it now. But, all them battles and money and it's just a lot. So someday.
Down the road.
Yep.
So what is it that drew you into the 1G platform in the first place?
Convenience, I guess. I remember, I got my other car in 2003 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd gotten it. This was about the same time when the Ecotechs come out, and my dad's buddy used to get cars from Chevy and stuff for $1 to build for SEMA. And, he was getting a new Ecotech, and they were supposed to build a turbo thing. And he come home with a turbo magazine that they did a build on it. Well, on the front of it was Shep's car, Buscher's rear-wheel drive, and Sean Glazer's car. And at the time, I didn't even know what these things were. I had no idea. And I seen that, and I'm like, well, them things look pretty cool. And holy shit, they're fast, So I did a little research, and it's like, well, I got to get one of these.
Yeah.
So that would have probably been in the fall, and I think by March I had gotten mine. It was a non-turbo, same as this one, that one's it was turbo, but it was a non-turbo automatic, come off a dealer lot in Detroit. My dad and my uncle went and got it for me and drug it home, and
wow,
it's been a disaster since. But so, I had already had a 1G, and this one, it's just what I liked. This probably would have been better if I'd have done it with a Colt or Mirage because it'd start off lighter, but I'm just not a Colt or Mirage guy,
Yeah. 1G's
I like my
pointed at
1G.
one end. It's made to be a race car.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's kind of why I started with this thing. This car actually came as a 2-car set. I can't remember when I got this thing. I think it was 2018. I had actually bought a 92 GSX, and I bought it to restore and sell. And I did, and that one's gone. It's out in Connecticut or something, and Roy Nash has it. Anyways, that came out really well. Well, this car came with it. So it was kind of, I got it. It's a front-wheel drive. It didn't have a title. So it's like, well, what else are you going to do with it, So I'm like, I guess I'm finally going to build a race car now.
That's where it all started.
Yep.
So were the original goals World Cup, or did you just want to have fun with it?
I think back then, yeah, that was kind of I didn't really know what I was going to do with it, but I think, yeah, that was my original idea, is that I wanted to go to run all motor. Because I had thought about it, back before then, 2013, 2014, my car would have been flirting with qualifying for the slowest class of turbo thing. I don't even know what they called it then. True Street or something. I mean, now it's all crazy.
Yeah.
But my turbo car would have been close. A little bit more work, and I think it would have qualified. And I'd have been out first round, but I'd still qualified.
Right.
And it got so fast, so quick. It seemed like, and there's just no chance that I want to do that with my turbo car. And I thought, well, the all motor one, that seems like something you could maybe do. And I mean, in hindsight, now that I've actually gotten into it, it's a steep road. It's a steep path, a lot to do. So. Yeah, I guess that was my original goal, but it wasn't really a smart goal or an achievable goal, I don't think. At least not for a very long time.
I gotcha. So speaking of that steep road, what challenges have you discovered while trying to squeeze all the 4G63 power you can without using forced induction?
Well, the biggest thing on these is parts. So, I mentioned like I'm running GSC S3s in it right now. In the DSM world, we consider that a very large cam.
Mm-hmm.
For say a K series, that's not quite as big as a K series big lobe in a factory engine, like one of the more racier ones.
Wow. So
yeah, we start out not quite our best cams are not as big as what they can get.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not the worst part of it. I have more stuff for it. I have a set of the big Kelford 294 300s. I got to get a head built to put those in. And then I have another set of comps that I bought from the twins, the AMS twins at the shootout, that are big too. So I have probably two of the biggest sets of cams that's ever existed for these cars. Mm-hmm. And they're still tiny in comparison to what the real all motor Hondas are running.
Wow, I never realized that.
Yeah, oh yeah. So the real big all motor Honda stuff, they're somewhere around, like 280 degrees duration at 50 thousandths. The big Kelfords I got, I think, are like 240 at 50 thousandths. And then, the Hondas are 650 lift, where, our biggest lift is like 490.
Yeah.
And, these were always designed as a turbo motor, and you don't need that much cam for turbo stuff. You don't. I mean, it helps, but you don't, So that's been a big thing, is, just the valve train stuff. And then there's not been a lot of testing, I mean, Kigley's done some work, but it's all been, turbo guided.
Right.
So that being said, that's my biggest thing, is I've been trying to get cams made, and I've been, basically ghosted by every large cam manufacturer in the country.
That doesn't surprise me.
You probably call comp and they're like, oh yeah, we can't do anything else. It's like, well, you have lobes that I think would work. Well, we don't have any blanks. Well, what if I make the blanks? And then they don't return your phone call. At one time I was talking with Schneider Racing Cams out in California, and they seemed like they were going to be helpful. They gave me a lot of information on what I need to get done. But, same thing. They said, oh yeah, we'll come up with some lobes, and crickets,
Yeah.
So after a few of those, I picked up a textbook that is about cam design, and I actually have some lobes designed.
Wow.
I bought a grinder, not a cam grinder. I bought an OD grinder that I'm going to make a cam grinding attachment for. I'm going to end up making my own cams for this deal eventually.
Hell yeah.
But so I have a lot of work to do in the cylinder head. That's a big thing. Everyone says, oh, the K-Series stuff flows so good, and it does. I mean, the 4G head flows really good. It doesn't flow that good, as good as those do. I think, like stock ones on my bench have been flowing somewhere around 240. And I think a stock K-Series thing, depending on what it is a little over 300. So we got some work to do there.
Mm-hmm.
I had a junk head that I did some exploratory work. I've had it over 350. It was not a usable head when it was done. I mean, it was in the water everywhere, and I'm hoping that I can get there and make it a usable head. I don't think it'd be usable on a turbo car, because I think you'll take too much material out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for this, I think it'll work. And they're putting those big heads that flow 400. they're on 2.7 liters.
Right.
You know, we're kind of limited in our architecture how big we can get. I mean, I think there's room for more stroke. I need to take this motor apart and see how bearings are and stuff. But so far it's been happy. So maybe there's, you know, we could maybe get them to be 2450s or something with a little more stroke. But, you know, then you're in a, you know, $6,000 billet crank from Brian Crower. I think they had them 106 millimeter cranks.
That's what I was about to say. I think they did make 106 millimeter.
And they made them like a 2.6, but they're, you know, they're like $6,000 for one of them cranks. And it's like, man, I think I can spend $6,000 in a lot better ways than getting a little bit more displacement.
Yeah, for sure.
So that leads me, at some point I'm going to make a head. And my goal with a head is to get rid of the stupid HLAs. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to use my car as development and testing, but the goal is for the fast guys, because they're tearing stuff up. They're, you know, some of them are having troubles keeping rockers on. And we need shaft mount rockers like everything else has. And that would be my goal, is to get, you know, shaft mount rockers so that way we can run the bigger lift cams and keep everything happier.
I did see that one of the billet 4G63 head prototypes did have that style rockers.
I can't remember. I've seen that. What I've seen mostly has been bucket style, like what a 2JZ's got. And that actually would work pretty good. The trouble you run into there is buckets are kind of limited on the max valve velocity. So it kind of limits your cam profiles you can have. To get decent lift, you got to have a really, really, really big duration. Big buckets, which, you know, we're kind of limited in that because it's a small bore motor, so the valve center lines are pretty narrow. There's drawbacks to every different design. Right. You know, the roller cam with a finger follower like we have is limited at the max valve acceleration. I mean, so I've done a ton of research on what is all involved in the cam design and the different setups, and there's a lot to it, you know, but if we were a bucket style like a 2JZ, it's a lot easier to get a cam made because that's the same load profiles as, you know, what a pushrod V8 would use. That's the same stuff. But our finger followers is a whole different ballgame, and it's really specific to every engine.
Yeah.
The guys at Schneider thought it was close enough to K-Series stuff they could use some of their bigger K-lobes. Because that's what they told me, but, you know, that don't matter if they don't return phone calls. So, you know, but that's where I'm at with all that, you know.
It's one of those things where you need to corner them at PRI and be like, hey, man, I need you to make this.
Yeah, exactly. I went like last year. I was going to go this year, but just, you know, couldn't find the time. So much other stuff to do, you know.
That's how, you know, talking to people about planetaries, and then that's why PRI is such a good thing, because you'd be like, hey, you know, this is serious. We really need these things.
Right. Yeah, that's a big deal with the autos. I hope somebody can get that done. I mean, I only play with stick shift stuff, and I just picked up some equipment to work on making gears, and that's one of my long-term goals, is to make gear sets for stuff for our transmissions. You know, for this thing in particular, the trans is so wide ratio, just getting a closer 1-2, I think, you know, is going to be worth a couple tenths, and that's my first goal, is I want to get a, you know, close ratio gear set made for it.
Yeah, if you get into the cam business, you should look into the 67.5 MyVec, because we would all love an option besides just welding them into MyVec full time. Right.
Yeah, definitely if I get a little farther along, it's definitely something I'll consider. I don't know, what are them ones like? They got, you know, finger followers like a 4G, or they never even looked at one?
More like a LS style.
Okay.
Yeah. So, Kurt, one thing that I love about your car is the name that you gave it. Could you tell us the story behind it?
I don't know. Not really much of a story, I guess. My wife likes to watch Forrest Gump all the time. And it just, you know, seemed fitting, you know. It's like call Lieutenant Dan, you know, like when that scene when he's like, you ain't got no legs, Lieutenant Dan. You ain't got no boost.
Yep. That's perfect.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of funny. I mean, I thought about a bunch of different names. I actually had a Facebook page for it that I've never even updated. I called it No Title because, you know, I didn't have a title for this car.
That's a good one, too.
But yeah, I think Lieutenant Dan fits. But then I don't know what I'm going to do. It's going to get a turbo setup on it at some point.
Yeah.
It's going to go to the shootout. It's going to go to the shootout this year. at least twice the power it makes right now.
Oh, wow.
Whether that's with a turbo on it or something else, I don't know yet. So yeah, if I end up getting a turbo on it, though, I don't know how Lieutenant Dan works anymore.
Yeah. Might have to go back to no title.
Yeah.
So, Kurt, what would you say is your favorite thing about this car over, all this time that you've been pushing it?
Probably it's a lot easier to drive than turbo car, and I'm not too worried about breaking it, I guess.
Yeah.
Which I, knock on wood. But yeah, I mean, it's so easy to drive. You put it to the line and hold it to the floor and let it hit the 9,000 rev limiter and dump the clutch, and away she goes. No screwing around trying to slip it out, or it's dump the clutch and pull gears.
You have to constantly be paranoid. Fun. Like, what's that sound? What? Do you smell that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, and then the fireballs it shoots too being an M5. Holy cow! And the dyno. When you push the clutch in at the end of the pull and it comes down to idle and it just starts shooting fire out the exhaust.
Wow.
So, that's just M5. Everything does it with that stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say the good old methanol fireballs.
Yeah.
So, what are your goals for 2024 with this car?
I want it to go faster. I want to get ahead. I want to get a real head on it. I haven't been confident enough in the work I'd done to where I wanted to start on a head. I wasn't sure that the things I was doing was heading the right direction. So I need to get a little more exploratory work done on the flow bench.
Yeah.
But I want to get a real head on it with my big cams and see where that goes. I mean, it went after the last time I updated the MitsuTimes. It went a little better. I think on there right now, $11.99. I think it went at import face-off at Byron. I think it went $11.92 or something. A few hundredths. Nothing to write home about. But I mean, I guess I'd like to see it get down in the tens. I think with a head and get some more weight out of it. I think it's possible. And I think right now it's like 2280. The other all-motor cars at this displacement could be like 1,800, I think, maybe even lighter.
Yeah.
So I can get a lot. Class-wise, I can get a lot more weight out of it. Not that it matters because it's all-wheel drive. They're never going to let it, race a real class. But I'd like to keep it in their rule set, I guess, just to see if I could actually make it work. If I get faster with it.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I mean, this thing's still got a factory hatch on it. The doors aren't very cut up yet. It just got the door bars out of it. I've not really done any real cutting on the car other than the trunk floor. It's all still there. So,
wow. So yeah,
I want to get more weight out of it.
You definitely could take a swing at a 10 with getting all that stuff changed out.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's got to have to pick up more power yet. But I think by between getting the weight out of it, getting a good head on it. Probably needs less clutch in the car. I think it would work better. I mean, that's a big thing. It's still on a heavy single disc flywheel and stuff. And I think a lightweight, I don't want to run a twin, but I think if I can convert one into a little single, I think the weight off the flywheel is going to help a lot too.
Yeah, for sure.
And it don't need to be on 26-inch tires. It's just what I had. It needs to be on 13-inch wheels with 24.5-inch tires,
right.
Maybe even 23s. But I don't know if I can do it because I think it's going to look stupid. I don't know. I'm hemming and hawing at it. I'm thinking about trying to get it on 13-inch wheels with 23s, but
at least give it a shot.
I just don't. It's a lot of money to buy 4 tires and wheels and then be like, man, this thing looks stupid. I can't do it.
Yeah. At least you'll be able to sell them relatively easy.
I'm torn on it, but that's the path it probably needs to take. We'll see where I go with it this year. I'm got a lot of other stuff to do too, so it's as time allows me to work on it. I haven't. Right. Boy, I wanted to do some intake manifold swapping and dynoing after import face-off, and then I grow pumpkins, so that's my busy season with trying to sell them and customer work, and I ain't touched it. It's basically I got antifreeze in it, and it's been sitting in cold storage since. So hopefully here when it gets warm, I'll get out there and do some tinkering. I want to try an Evo 3 intake on the head. I'm going to take the one off my other car. I think that's gonna perk the low end up a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll see.
Don't get much better than those Evo 3 ones.
Yeah. It when I dynoed it on the other car, it hurt the top end versus a sheet metal. Not a lot. I mean, we're talking at at 8,500, the JM, I had a JMF Street on it. It was 25 horsepower better than the Evo 3.
Wow.
But at 5,500, the Evo 3 was 150 better.
Shoo.
And that's masked because it basically what it did is it brought the turbo on sooner. This was on an engine dyno, and we'd start the pull before we'd even have boost, so it would just kind of come into it naturally.
Yeah.
And the Evo 3, it just made it work better sooner, and that's why it made so much better. It isn't that the intake made it flow so much more air. It just it brought the turbo on sooner.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what you need for that kind of stuff.
Right.
The wider power band is going to make it work better.
Yep. The Evo 3 intake is just so much, like, the runners are just so much straighter.
Yeah. Yeah, than like a normal 1G intake. Yeah, it definitely is. They're shorter. They're probably 6 inches shorter, which helps move its natural RPM up higher. The biggest thing is that the cross-sectional area is where it needs to be. 6-bolt head, the port's too big. And I think it's too big for this too. I think it needs about the bottom quarter inch of it plugged up, and then I think that would help. I personally think a 2G head is too small. I think what they need to be is in the middle, but that's just what I've thought over the years of playing with this stuff. So
I think some people have. Well, I mean, I guess it wouldn't work for a DSM, but the Hyundai dual overhead cam one that the 3G guys use on their 4G64, a lot of people say that's like the perfect intake size for all motor.
Yeah, that could be. I think they're running them. I think they put them on them and it puts the intake out the front, don't it?
No, the intake's the same, but it's just the intake manifold aligns with the intake ports a lot better. Okay.
Yeah, I think my brother's got a couple of those heads. They come on the dual overhead cam 2.4s that are in some of them Hyundai stuff. Yeah, that's the block that he uses in his car. He's got a couple of the heads, but I thought about trying one of those on this because then if you put one of those heads on this motor, the intakes would come out the front.
Yep.
So then, like, if you're going to do, that's a big reason. A bunch of people ask me if I'm going to do individual throttle bodies, and I don't think I'm going to on this car because with a 6-bolt head or even a 7-bolt head, they're going to point out the back, and that puts them into a high temperature, low pressure zone.
Right. Sucking in
the
all that
Hondas, they come out the front, out of the hood, it's right into a high pressure zone. So if I switched to one of those Hyundai heads, I could do that, but we'll see. Then I got to make another header, in which I got to make another header anyways, but it's
down the road.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It isn't just a simple swap,
Yeah.
This episode of the MitsuTimes podcast is brought to you by Club Spec Custom Designs. They pride themselves on providing the highest level of customer service and satisfaction with their innovative designs and quality. They guarantee that you will be amazed with the results that will be produced. They are providing quality products for your Mitsubishi Lancer Rally Art, Mitsubishi Evolution 10, or Mitsubishi Outlander Sport. Check out all their products at clubspecchicago.com.
So, Kurt, what would you say is the long-term goal for this car?
Make it competitive with the Hondas.
I like that.
I mean, I don't know if it's possible or not. I mean, I've seen there's some B series stuff that runs good, and our heads are as good as a B series. They can probably have a little more. Actually, I think our heads are better than a B series head. Now, some of these new race castings they got for them, who knows? But I think the factory heads, I think we're maybe better. But they're valve trained, they're shaft mount rockers, so they're a little better off in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
We also have a kind of a displacement advantage that we can build a bigger motor than they can. So and there's some Nissan's SR20 all motor stuff that runs good too. So
yeah.
We'll see. I mean, it's just kind of I'm gonna play and see, and hopefully I just don't get too distracted by other stuff. So I'm gonna play with it. All motor methanol. In the spring a little bit. I'm gonna try to get it out and do some things. But it's going to have a different motor in it for the shootout this year.
Yeah.
I'm building a flat top 2-liter for it, not a big high compression motor.
Yeah.
So we're going to try that, and the goal is to bring it there with that, without a turbo on it, and make twice the power it's making right now.
Hell yeah. Have you thought about running nitro meth through it?
That's why I'm going to build a new motor.
Gotcha.
It's going to be on 100%. If this works out, it's going to come to the shootout on 100%. So I'm working on figuring out fuel pumps and injectors right now is the big thing. So I've only dabbled in it. Besides running M5, which is 5%, and I've run an absolute amazing amount of 25% model airplane fuel through dirt bikes over the years. That's been my experience with it so far. So I've never tried to do anything big like that. But what I've learned so far, is nitro. You're like, our air fuels on methanols, like 5 to 1. 100% nitro, you're pretty going to be close to 1 to 1.
Wow.
So, it's going to be all motor, and this thing's going to need, like 500 pound an hour's worth of injector. So it's just crazy. And there's no one, as far as I know, the people that'll actually talk about it, there's a top fuel motorcycle that's electronic, and they're using some precision 550s. It's got a fuel tech control in it. So that's about the only person I've seen that actually talks about it. There's another guy in Great Britain. You ought to look on his thing. Phil Shed of Dreams or something. This dude built a V4 nitro motorcycle from scratch. I mean, had casted the engine cases, everything. And anyways, it's not blown or anything. It's just injected nitro, but it's electronic. And he's running AFI injectors, so I'm kind of thinking about maybe trying them. There's a lot, and then you try to talk to people about what you're going to do, and they say, oh, that'll never work. So you just stop even asking, and you just do. So I'm working on figuring out what I'm really going to need for injectors. I'm hoping I can find something so I can be just one injector a hole. I don't want to have to do two, because this is it's going to keep a E85 fuel system on it. It's going to start, warm up, idle, everything on E85, and only bring nitro on at 100% throttle.
Yeah.
Just because it's $40 a gallon.
Right.
So we don't need to be idling around on that. So anyways, I want to keep, the factory injector for that. And I got one of them JMF intakes with auxiliary injectors. So it'd be easy to start there. But if I got to put two injectors, then it means I got to make an intake too. And it spirals out of control. So then I got to build another header for it, because supposedly collector headers don't work. So it's going to actually get a Zoomy. So 4 into 4 out the hood. I don't want to cut a hole in the hood, because it's a fiberglass hood I made. I don't want to have to cut it, but I don't think I got a choice. So it's just a lot.
Problem is, if you route it through the bumper like a normal turbo car, you just heat soak in the engine bay.
Yeah, exactly. That's how it's done right now. It's got the header down through the bumper on the passenger side.
Yeah.
And then the intake pipe has to run over the top of it. So, yeah, a lot of little things. They aren't set up very good to be an all-motor car, but that's okay.
Yeah.
It's all for fun. I mean, no matter what I do, even if it runs as good, it's not like I can take it to H-Day or any of these things, because their rules are so, it's got to be front-wheel drive and all that, and honestly, I don't know how much all-wheel drive even matters. So the car makes, 250 horsepower at the tire, and it did wheelies already. So,
wow. Jeez.
At the finals at Import Face Off at Byron, apparently it did a wheelie, and everybody and their brother came by to tell me it did, but nobody had video footage. God darn it.
Don't tell me about it.
Yeah, both front tires off the ground.
That's nuts, huh?
Yeah, especially, it's 250 horsepower. And they're really front heavy.
Yeah. That just shows you that you got the gearing perfect in there. Yeah,
and it's on QuickTime Pros that are like 10 years old.
Wow.
So I can't imagine what it's going to do when it, get some fresh tires on it. And,
yeah.
It'll be nice.
Get some nice sticky tires on it.
Mm-hmm.
So besides this car and your other 1G that is a turbo car, have you had any other Mitsubishis that you want to talk about?
I have a bunch of them. I don't know if they're really worth talking about. I have an all-wheel drive auto Summit.
Oh, nice.
I've had that forever, and I keep going back and forth if I actually really want it or not. But nobody wants to come and give me any money for it, so I guess I'm going to keep it.
What color is it?
It's red.
Oh, okay.
It's going to get 5-speed swapped. I don't play with autos. I'm just not going to do it. So it's going to get 5-speed swapped, and I'm back and forth on what I want to do with that. I think that thing's actually going to get another all-motor build in it too. I'm going to build like a 10-to-1, 2.4, because I'm just going to drive that thing. I don't need so many race cars. I mean, obviously, I want to put some cams in it so it idles all lumpy, but
sounds cool, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not gonna. It'd be cool if it run like, I don't know, 14s or something, because it's a kind of a big vehicle. If it run like what a stock turbo car run, I'd be pretty happy, and I think that's doable.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's doable. I have a 90 Galant GSX that I've had for, forever. I think I got that thing in like 2010. And that's actually where the transits in the all motor car came from.
Oh wow!
So those are actually more rare than a VR4. This was the year before VR4s came.
I'd always heard that.
Yeah, and so this has it's a non-turbo single overhead cam, 2 liters, what it originally would have come with. And mine's actually got a turbo setup, and it's got a non-turbo short block with a 16G on it or something. And it's just a driver again. I had plans on putting a little bigger turbo setup on it and stuff, but I just only so many hours in the day. You can't have everything be a massive hot rod. So it's just a neat old car to drive. I really like it. It's getting kind of rusty because it was an Illinois car its whole life, and just run through the ringer. But it's a lot of fun to drive, so I'm probably going to fixing it up some. I've been looking for another roller to replace it with. Never did find one, so I guess I'm just going to fix this one up.
There was an Eagle version of the Galant GSX, right? Or was that only overseas?
Canada is a 2000 GTX, okay. And I'm not 100%. I think you could have gotten those like a VR4, but I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
I'm not. I just know they exist. I've seen one at Mitsubishi Owners Day. I've seen one there, and then not long ago, somebody was actually parting one out on one of the VR4 pages.
Oh, no kidding.
And of course, all the 2000 GTX stuff, specific stuff, badges and everything was already gone. But that'd have been cool.
Yeah,
I'm more of an Eagle guy than a Mitsu guy, even though they're the same things. I like the Eagles better. We had an Eagle dealership in my hometown, so.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, and then I just picked up a front wheel drive, a 94 Gold Edition Laser, a non-turbo one. I'm just going to I don't know what I'm going to do with that thing. I'm going to put something together for it. I got a 7-bolt non-turbo to put in it, but I don't usually like to put a used motor in without checking it over. So it's going to come apart. It's like, well, if it's going to come apart, maybe I should put some, bigger pistons in it, or a, stroker crank or whatever, and spiral's out of control.
Yeah.
So I don't know what I'm going to do with that yet, but it's sitting still. Yep. It's certainly not going to be a race car, just another driver. I kind of miss having one to just drive. My turbo car's in paint shop jail, so when it gets out of paint shop jail, I don't know that I'm going to want to be, driving the heck out of it,
right.
All the time.
Beating it up again.
Yeah. Certainly not wintertime driving. Like, that thing did a lot of miles in the winter that I, hindsight, wish I hadn't, but you got to do what you got to do sometimes.
For sure. So, Kurt, you've been into these cars for a super long time. If someone out there is listening, they bought a 1G, it's close to stockish, and they just want to, slowly climb up the MitsuTimes list, what advice would you give them for their build?
Patience is key. Build for today, not for tomorrow. I see so many people, they're buying parts to put on their car for some crazy build. It's a big thing, clutch stuff. I build these transmissions professionally.
Mm-hmm.
And, this guy's got a stock car, and he's like, I'm going to do all this crazy stuff in 2 years, and I want to buy a clutch. And it's like, 2 years, if you play with it, you're going to be several clutches deep. So don't build for 3 years from now. Build for what you're going to do right now.
Yeah.
You're going to have to buy stuff a couple times, but you're going to have to buy stuff a couple times anyways.
Right. That's just part of racing.
And I don't want to be Debbie Downer, but be realistic with what you can do and what you can afford to do. A lot of the reason why I'm playing with this all motor car is it's realistically pretty cheap. I mean, there's no $1,500 turbo. If you had a MIG welder and an angle grinder, you could do everything I did to this thing. And some drive, you could do it. And the most expensive part of the whole car is an Eagle 100mm crank. That's the most expensive part of the car.
Wow.
So, be realistic with your means, what you can actually afford to do, because you see it so many times, you feel bad for people. They spend so much money on this crazy build and they have no budget left for repairs and maintenance. And, one pass, it's like, and it breaks and you got to part it out, or you don't even get it finished and you got to part it out.
Yep.
Be realistic with it. I know the internet has everyone convinced that if you have a car that don't run sevens, you're a nobody and it's slow and your life's incomplete. Well, let me tell you, even if you have a car that runs fucking fours, you're still going to be a nobody and life's still going to be incomplete if that's the attitude you have.
Yeah.
My Turbo Talent, it's so much fun. I've won a lot of races with it. It runs in the high nines. The all motor car is just as fun, and it's a lot less hassle, a lot less money. It's safer because you're not going as fast. It's have fun with where you're at and where you can be. Don't set your goal. Don't set unrealistic goals. Be honest with yourself. That's the biggest thing I can tell. And then the last thing I guess would be make smart choices. I didn't spend a cent on the all motor car that I didn't need to. You look at that thing, and it's got a factory fuel rail on it. It's got a factory fuel pressure regulator. I got old school FIC injectors because I know the stuff works, and I spent the money that I would have spent on fancy stuff where it counted, building a bigger motor,
right.
High compression pistons, those places, not spending on things that don't really matter when everyone says you got to do. You got to be smart and think for yourself on a lot of this stuff, and really put the money where it counts, not on extra stuff. A lot of people, first thing they buy is some $1,500 turbo setup, and they can't support it. That was back in the day, I always ran Holsets on my stuff, and everyone's like, oh, they're so slow, and it's like, well, it's not because of that. It's because the average guy that's going to do a Holset setup isn't well funded, and the rest of the car that needs all the money isn't going to get it. That's why the name brand turbo stuff's fast, because they're going to spend the money on the rest of the car that it needs to support that and utilize that to its fullest.
Yeah. How many times do we see somebody, I got this Precision 82. Like, okay, well, what are you doing for supporting mods?
Right.
I haven't figured that part out yet.
Right. The turbo car, if you're going to go fast, the first thing you need to buy is dog box. That'll make your car faster with a 14B. It really will.
Yeah.
So, we get all mixed matched up, on the directions to head, because buying driveline parts isn't glorious. It isn't something you can put on your Instagram feed or whatever.
Yeah.
That is not how it works.
No one wants to see some axles.
Yeah, nobody wants to see that. They want to see some big whirlybird on there, and it's like, well, whirlybird and broken axles means you're not having fun.
Yeah.
14B and axles, that means you can go out and do what I do with the all motor car, put it on the rev limiter and dump the clutch and not break it. That's way more fun.
Mm-hmm. Or shots of you racing in general instead of replacing axles.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So, Kurt, what events can we come out and see this car in action in 2024?
Shootout for sure. I'm gonna. If St. Louis actually has racing at Import Face Off, I'll be at both of those. I was gonna go in the spring last year and we didn't make it. The fall, it ended up being one of them street meets, not a real race, so I didn't go. But yeah, if there's actual race, I'll be at both of those. I haven't looked at the schedule much yet. I believe there's 2 Chicagoland Import Face Offs. I'll be at those. I think they're at Great Lakes this year, so I'll be at them. Let's see. I want to try to go to. I think there's like a streetcar takeover at 131 in Michigan. I'm gonna try to go to that maybe, because there's a bunch of Detroit or Michigan area DSM guys. So I think that'll be a good event. I'd like to try to go to Indy for streetcar takeover. We'll see. Some of these I might, like streetcar takeovers, I'll probably have the turbo car there because it's a better fit. But then again, if it ain't done, I ain't gonna have a choice. I'll bring the all motor car. And my let's see, one of my buddies, Chris Motter he's down south. He shares a bunch of no prep stuff down south. I'm gonna try to go to some of that kind of stuff too, with this thing and see how it does. I might actually end up trying to run it in like hard tire or something.
Oh yeah, that'd be cool.
Because it's so light, I think that'll be kind of an advantage. But so many places they get super jerky about all-wheel drive stuff. You know, you can run a Fox body with, you know, a step ladder hanging off the back and 500 pounds on it and no front clip, and that's fine. But bring an all-wheel drive and you're the biggest piece of shit in the world.
Yeah,
so
God forbid all 4 of your wheels turn.
Yeah, we'll see. I want to try to go to some of that stuff, but you know, it's hard. I got a wife and kids, and I farm a little bit, and I teach university classes, and then I run my shop, so my time to go racing is semi-limited. But we'll see. It ends up usually for me being a lot of spur of the moment stuff, you know. But yeah, I'll be at the shootout for sure. Absolutely, it'd be nice. I'd like to bring both cars. I don't know that that's doable for me, but I'll have this one at the shootout for sure, and hopefully it's on 100%. That's the goal.
Can't wait to see it.
It'll be, well, bring your gas masks. Because even in my little dyno room on 5%, Jesus, it was terrible.
Methanol will run you out.
When I first got it going on all-wheel drive, I didn't have the trunk floor done. I had it on the dyno, you know, no trunk floor in it. Big fan in the front of it, so it just like took all the exhaust gases and blew them in the trunk back at you, and it was just terrible.
Just recirculating them into the cabin.
Yeah, I could barely get the pull finish and get everything shut down and get out of it, and I couldn't see. That was terrible.
So, Kurt, where can people find and follow you on social media and see more of this? Well, both of your cars.
Well, let's see. I share some stuff on my personal page. I share some stuff on the shop page too, White Shed Speed. And then I do have a page for the non-turbo car. It is called No Title, but I may be changing the name of it. I need to put some stuff on there for that. I have a build thread for both cars on DSM Tuners, so they can see some stuff there. I don't really post on there that much anymore. It's been getting pretty slow, so I haven't been using it much lately. But I try to, when I have something important to share, try to share it there. So,
yeah. Well, Kurt, at the end, I always give people a chance to give a thanks or a shout out to anybody who's helped them get where they are, get their car where it is. Is there anybody that you want to give a shout out to?
Oh, of course. First off, my wife for being understanding and realizing that I'm going to do this crap and being happy with it. My little brother, he's always there when I need him to get something done for me. Let's see. Josh Bachman, he rebuilds calipers and does a bunch of stuff that I don't think gets paid anywhere near enough for, restoring parts for people. But anyways, he donated some parts to this. I think the cam gears came from him. He gave me a crank, a few other odds and ends. But yeah, he's always there for when I have questions about stuff that I don't know. He's a big help. Boy, I don't know. The list could go on and on. You know, there's a lot of people out there that help with this stuff.
Yeah.
You know.
Takes a village.
Rob Barak, I've talked to him a little bit over the years about what he was doing with his all motor stuff. It's just, a lot of people out there, you know.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Kurt, thank you so much for taking the time to come on here and tell the story. I hope that we get to see some more all motor builds. That'd be pretty sweet. Yeah,
it would be. It's neat and it's fun. It's something I wish, you know, people would do. And like I said, at the end of the day, if it don't work good all motor, I still end up with a really nice race chassis.
Yeah, that's true.
So I feel like it's, you know, set up good enough. I could put a 14B on it and go fast with that. So we'll see. I wanted to put a turbo on this motor, but with it being 86.5 bore, I don't think that's a good choice.
All right, Kurt. Well, I'll see you at the shootout. Maybe I'll see you at IFO before that.
Yes, hopefully.
All right. I'll talk to you soon.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for listening to the MitsuTimes podcast. Check out our Instagram and Facebook for daily updates. Get added to our list by going to MitsuTimes.org and clicking Submit a Slip. Thank you to all of our sponsors.